Hey, it's Joe Ragnarsson again with In Between Worlds, and today I'm going to be sharing a trip report about the molecule dimethyltriptamine, also known as DMT. But first, I'm going to talk about a couple other things, or really just one thing. So, this is tar bar. This is the butt of a Marlboro Light Special Blend cigarette. You insert the cigarette in the tar bar, and then you smoke the cigarette. Inhale it through this thing here. This here, black shit, is the tar from one Marlboro Light cigarette. So that you have a comparison. This is a brand new tar bar. This is a used one from one cigarette. Now they say on the box that you can use 6 or 7 cigarettes for one tar bar. I use about 3 or 4 and then throw it away because it starts getting nasty. It's really a huge wake-up call about cigarettes though. Just looking at that shit and thinking about that collecting in my lungs really gives me uncomfortable feelings. And we all know that this happens when you smoke, but it's different to kind of see it. And you look at a cigarette butt and you know it's nasty as fuck, but you don't really think about it. So when you see the tar collected in this little thing here, like that, see the tar collected in it, it kind of, I don't know, it kind of fucks with you. Let me adjust the camera because I don't want the audio to be bad like it has been recently using my phone. Using my phone because I'm having Wi-Fi problems, issues that hopefully will be resolved soon. So I'm unable to use my camera to use my computer to upload videos. I'm doing everything off my phone right now. So yeah, I want to just say that about cigarettes real quick. This is a glass from my new whiskey set. There's 4 glasses like this, 4 whiskey glasses, and this container thing. I like to use things that look nice and things that have a special kind of vibe for ritual and things like that, because having something special or nice looking, like these shiny chalices and things like that, and like these little candle holders with pentagrams, it signals your subconscious that what's going on is important. It helps to create the psychodrama that leads to the altered states that also enable your subconscious to receive instruction and to also reach the states that enable you to communicate with the other side and to do what I call living in between worlds, to be in the physical and communicating with the spiritual world or the unseen. Whether you want to think of that as simply archetypes within yourself or something external, it doesn't really matter. Internal, external, it's all the same thing. Everything is just one thing. Everything. So none of that's really important. So yeah, I like to use nice things to pour out of that container rather than straight out of the bottle, which right now I'm sipping on a little bit of Fireball whiskey. Something I only do once in a blue moon now. Skull. So this is a vaporizer. This is the vape juice. doesn't say. I think it's 3% tobacco, 3% nicotine rather. This is CBD oil. I add a little bit of that. It's mostly CBD oil and a little bit of the nicotine juice. Trying to transfer to that rather than smoking these nasty fuckers. It's really just giving me a bad feeling about smoking. And it's kind of silly because we all know already that smoking is horrible for you and that your lungs turn to shit when you smoke. So moving past all that, you guys wanted to hear about Swim's DMT trip. So someone who isn't me decided to try DMT, and we'll refer to someone who isn't me as Swim for short. So Swim extracted it from the Mimosa hostilis plant. The root bark of the Mimosa hostilis plant contains high quantities of DMT. I believe it's 1% yield, which means that for every 100 grams of the root bark powder, you would have 1 gram of DMT within. So it's a very good plant to use for that purpose. The extraction is very simple. You mix it in an aqueous solution, and you would alkalize it, and then use a nonpolar solvent to pull the free-base DMT from the aqueous solution. It's insoluble in water, but it is soluble in things like lighter fluid. And then you would freeze precipitate it. Someone who isn't you would do it like that, which means rapidly lowering the temperature enables the free-base solution to solidify and precipitate, fall to the bottom of the container, and then it would be filtered out. Very simple. The nonpolar solvent evaporates very quickly and easily to the point that it leaves no residue or anything like that. That's the beautiful thing about those kinds of solvents. And it should be noted that these kinds of chemical processes are used in laboratories to make almost every medication out there. The same kinds of processes are used, the same kinds of chemicals are used in a lab setting as what would be used by someone who isn't you in a home chemistry setting. Now, this channel does not promote the use of substances, mind-altering substances, for any reason. This channel and Joe Ragnarson do not promote the use of legal or illegal substances for any reason to alter your state of consciousness. Altered states should be achieved through meditative practices and ritual and spiritual traditions. This report is for educational and entertainment purposes only, but this is not medical advice. This is not encouraging anyone to use substances, and I do not endorse the use of substances in any way. So, don't do this at home. So someone who isn't me acquired an amount of DMT. A breakthrough dose, which is a dose that induces out-of-body experiences, and something similar to an NDE or near-death experience, is about 50 milligrams to 60 milligrams, which, in the words of Terence McKenna, is 3 enormous hits from a pipe or bong or something like that. The free-base form of DMT cannot be used orally because the liver rapidly breaks it down through the enzyme known as monoamine oxidase. And those of you who are familiar with pharmacology or who have taken antidepressants may know of what's called monoamine oxidase inhibitors, or MAOIs. These are contained in the drink known as ayahuasca, and it enables you to ingest the DMT containing plant without the oxidation taking place in the liver and rendering the DMT useless. Oxidized DMT, or DMT oxidase, dimethyltriptamine oxidase, is not psychoactive. It does not cross the blood-brain barrier. So don't get the idea that you can order a bunch of Mimosa hostilis root bark and just eat the stuff or make a tea out of it and drink it. It's not going to do anything but make you shit yourself and puke everywhere. So anyway, Swim decided to smoke the DMT freebase. It's actually vaporizing it in much the same way that you would vaporize marijuana dabs, cannabis dabs, or vaporizing like a nicotine juice. So, if any of you guys out there, someone who isn't you, ever decides that you want to do this in the future, you will have a little bit of advice on how not to hurt yourself, how not to end up having a bad experience, which is a real danger with using powerful psychoactive substances, psychedelics, tryptamines in particular. There is a high risk of having a bad trip. And in extreme cases, bad trips can lead to PTSD. They can be that traumatizing. So, you're going to create a safe space. In ayahuasca ceremonies, a shaman will hold space over you and the other participants to ensure that this does not happen, because you're opening doors to multitudes of dimensions, in theory. None of this is proven, but it is believed that this molecule opens up access to unseen worlds. It could all just be completely biological in nature and just be a hallucination. But most people who experience it don't believe that, because it feels so very real. And in fact, it feels more real than this, the Matrix. So, for educational and harm reduction purposes, I'm sharing Swim's experiences with you. He told me about what he experienced, and he wanted me to share it. So, once the substance was extracted, he created a safe space. He smudged the room, lit some white candles, performed the LBRP. He called the quarters. He called on his guides and mediators to be there and to guide him through the experience. And he decided to play it safe, since he is not familiar with the substance up until recently, to try a threshold dose of one hit, and then afterwards, separately, a separate experience, try 2 hits, and then finally try a breakthrough dose. And he does not recommend that you do this. If you are uncertain whether you have a clean, pure product or not, test it chemically. Don't test it like that. Swim does not recommend thresholding. Swim recommends going all in, taking all 3 big ass hits, holding them for 15 seconds, to the point that you cannot resist the experience, that you cannot resist breaking through and leaving your body, because it can be absolutely terrifying. And when you resist, when you get to the door and you're about to break through and you say, your ego convinces you that you're dying, because the ego is experiencing death. So it convinces you that you're dying and you don't want to. So you resist, and that is when you start to have a bad trip, is when you allow the fear to take root, and you start to fight against where the molecule is taking you. It's taking over your brain and it's ripping your soul out of your body, sending you somewhere else. And you have to let go of control and ride out this wave where this molecule is taking you, where the entities are taking you. So, with that said, I'm going to share his experiences with a threshold dose, one hit. So, one hit creates kind of, it's like looking through a kaleidoscope. You start to see like what some people describe as fractals. There's these geometrical patterns that make up everything. And they're beautiful and they're colorful, and everything starts to take on a hue of like more purples and more oranges and more greens, primarily more oranges. Everything's brighter and more vivid. Your senses are enhanced. There starts to be a ringing in your ears, like kind of like a Tibetan singing bowl, or something like that. That humming that it makes after you bong, and then you start to wum, 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 wum. It's that sound. And as the experience builds, that sound gets louder. So it instantly it feels like you're losing control, which is why most people need a partner to help them break through, because you're unable to hold the lighter and the smoking apparatus. After one or two hits takes over, your body can go limp. You're seeing these geometrical shapes and patterns, and you're not really able to even see the device without having to. It's kind of like being extremely drunk. Your motor skills aren't really there, but it's these fantastic visuals, and if you're not afraid, if you're not experiencing pre-trip anxiety like I was, then there's this euphoria that takes over. Um, that's kind of, I can relate it to mushrooms, which are a tryptamine. Psilocybin is a tryptamine. It's actually dimethyltriptamine in another form with another molecule attached to it, or to LSD, and somewhat similar to MDMA, all of which I have experienced. So, so that experience was pretty nerve-wracking for Slim. So he thought to himself, how am I going to do a breakthrough dose if that was so unnerving? Because it comes on so suddenly. If you've ever done any psychedelics or any drugs for that matter, you'll know that there's a kind of a rising, a come up, and then a peak, a climax, and then a come down. For DMT, the come up is like 3 seconds. It's like inhale, hold, and you're somewhere else. You're not sitting in your room anymore. You're sitting in this crazy fucking world of geometrical patterns and sounds. And it's kind of like what I would imagine being in a spacecraft would feel like. The the beeps, bing, beep, and this like weird floaty feeling of less gravity. It's so difficult to explain, and what makes it even more difficult is the dreamlike feeling of it when you come back down to baseline after 7 to 10 minutes, um, depending on your dosage. It's difficult to recall. It's like being in a trance or dreaming or like channeling an entity. All of those things kind of have that weird dreamlike feeling of I can kind of recall, but I can't really explain it. And the more time that passes by, the more difficult it is to recall the details. Um, so, what he recommends is having a notebook nearby, or a voice recorder, or your cell phone, or anything, or any way to document what you've experienced immediately after the trip, because you'll forget. And any important lessons that you've learned from the entities or from the breakthrough experience, you'll want to document. So the next time he decided to try 2 hits. Thinking that maybe his lung capacity is bigger than others because he's had a lot of experience in the past, in the distant past, with using other drugs. Now, I personally don't use stimulants, opiates, opioids, painkillers, or any of those kind of like meth, amphetamine, cocaine, morphine, hydrocodone, oxycodone, benzodiazepines like Xanax, Valium, and I do not take antidepressants of any kind. Um, any of those extreme uppers or downers that have high addictive qualities and zero spiritual value. Um, I refuse to take. If I had surgery tomorrow and had my arm amputated, I would not take painkillers. I refuse to take those things because when I was younger, I had a problem. So, but occasionally, for spiritual reasons, I will use psychedelics, psilocybin mushrooms, LSD, ayahuasca, things of that nature. Um, Things that have a spiritual value that can initiate experiences that teach you something. Um, but these experiences are always in proper setting and planned and having an intention behind them. Um, I won't take these drugs for like a party setting or anything like that because if I don't draw a line for myself, then there's always the tendency to get carried away. So one thing can lead to another, and it's the same way with alcohol. Alcohol takes people into dark places, um, and even it can be beneficial to use alcohol, but it can become a crutch in ritual in achieving altered states. So I don't recommend it for that reason, but if you're having trouble reaching trance, it can help you get there. Using cannabis, using alcohol in low quantities, like 2, 3, 4 beers or 1, 2 glasses of whiskey tops. But if you get shit faced, you're not going anywhere. You're just going to insult the entities that you're trying to contact, um, and you're just gonna kind of stumble through something that is pointless and isn't going anywhere. Whatever you're trying to manifest is not going to manifest because you've just slobbered your way through um, something that you should have been more aware for. So anyway, 2 hits is a sub breakthrough dose. Um, unless you just have lungs of steel and you're able to take an enormous hit and hold it forever. But so Swim doesn't have a milligram scale. He doesn't know how much he loaded into his smoking apparatus. Um, he just listened to Terrence McKenna talk a lot about taking 3 big hits. So that's what he decided to do. Anyway, this second experience was a 2-hit experience. This experience, he decided to have a couple of beers to loosen himself up, to get over the kind of pre-flight anxiety, and also get into contact with his higher self beforehand so that he would have an inner voice guiding him through the experience. So he took the first hit, boom, all that stuff happened. Took the second big hit, felt his world fucking disappearing, and started to blast off into space. He lay down, closed his eyes, and the entities, is what I'll call them, began speaking. And they speak as a hive mind, as if they all speak as one. They use the pronoun we. And they said, "We've got you now." As soon as the experience started to take hold and the second hit was taken, they said, "We've got you now." They said, "You're a hard one to teach." And he just got the sense that they were speaking as a hive mind. And so he doesn't know what they are. Terrence McKenna called these the machine elves, and I guess he saw them. Maybe Terrence saw them. But Swim never saw them. He just heard them speaking. And I could see where McKenna could get that idea of machine elves. They are kind of machine-like, and they are kind of elf-like, I guess, if you could imagine what machine elves would be like. So they spoke like that, and they said, "You're a hard one to teach," and some other things, and they said, "So we're going to show you." They said, "Look," and Swim started to see the geometrical patterns and all of that, but they were much more vivid and intense than before. And he would start to open his eyes, and they would say, "No, no, don't. Just stay with us. Stay here." And they would say, "Just relax." And then Swim felt like he wasn't breathing. So they said, "Don't worry about your body. Your body is programmed to breathe even when you're not conscious of it, even when you're not with it. So your body will take care of itself." This is what the entities were saying. And it was kind of like that inner voice guiding Swim through the experience. And they said, "This is what everything is," in reference to the shapes, the patterns, the geometrical patterns. If you've ever heard of sacred geometry and fractals and things like that, that's what came to mind afterwards. But during the experience, Swim kept thinking about his body and like the how slow his breathing felt, and the entities were like, "Stay here, stay with us, stay with us. Everything's gonna be okay. Look, this is what everything is." They kept saying that. "This is what everything is. This is what everything is. Like everything is this. This is what everything's made of." And then they said, "Notice how you're thinking, your thoughts. Notice how it changes with thoughts." And then he would think of something, like have a thought, and the shapes would change. He would have a negative thought, and the shapes. That was the third experience. So scratch the negative thought thing. But anyway, he would have a thought. He would think of something, and then it would change. like they would move in a different rate, or they would change shape or change color. And then the entity said, it's the same way when you're back in your body. Everything changes with your thoughts, with thought. Um, they said, this is what everything is. This is what everything is. They kept saying it over and over. This is what everything is. This is what everything is. Almost like an obsessive thinking pattern. And they kept iterating how thought affects it. And this is going to be important for the third trip experience. That's about to come. So this went on, just admiring and looking at the shapes and going, wow, this is fucking amazing. And the entities having this weird, like, almost humorous, like, almost like they were giggling at things. And showing Swim what everything is made of. What the universe, existence, the multiverse, whatever, dimensions. But I think it was in reference to this 3D matrix here, that this is what everything is. And it almost was like showing me that it's almost like a simulation. That like what we see is not really what is. What we see is like a simulation of what is. And that it's like a projection of thought. It's very difficult to describe, especially when you come back, because when you're there in the experience, everything's just so clear. You're like, oh, I understand everything. And then you come back and the molecule has let go of your brain and you're like, what the fuck was I, how can I, what did I learn again? It's so difficult, and that's why people want to go back again and do it again, like, in a few months or something. Some people smoke DMT 2 or 3 times a year so that they can be reminded of what they learned or learn new things. But it's not something, I can promise you, it's not something that you're going to want to do all the time, because it's that intense, and you're not going to want to do it if you're going through some shit in your life, like really heavy, depressive type of stuff. Because now I'm going to tell you about Swim's third experience. So, the breakthrough. So, he took the 3 big hits, and by the time he exhaled the third, he doesn't even remember exhaling the third big hit. By that time, he gets to the place of breakthrough and just, there's no like deciding I don't want to go, and no battling with the ego about, oh my god, I'm dying. It just kind of like that thought crossed his mind, and then his mind wasn't there anymore. Boom, ego death. You don't exist anymore. You are like pure consciousness. The you that you identify with, your body and your ego, doesn't exist at all. And in reality, when you die, your ego will not continue to have life. Your higher self, maybe your pure consciousness will is what lives on in the next life. But the ego you does not live on. And the you that you identify with, that gives you your likes and dislikes and your memories and your experiences, that doesn't go with you into the next experience or whatever. And that's also true with a DMT breakthrough. It's this beautiful fucking, like, stepping through hyperspace into this place, and like there's all this stuff going on all at one time. It's like thoughts just so fast, boom, 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 and they're trying to tell you so much stuff at one time, and it's almost like they're all speaking at one time. And so, trying to reconcile like the breakthrough, um, I, for whatever reason, I had a negative thought, and so this hellish experience took place. It was just like pure suffering. Um, and they said, bring your thoughts back. Bring your thoughts back to something good. And I guess they helped me do it because I really couldn't. I was experiencing this weird kind of like hell experience. And so I went back to this positive place, and then everything was beautiful again and euphoric, and the colors, the shapes, the good feelings, and then it shifted back, like back to hell, and I wrestled with it for a second, and they were like, "Come back, come back." So I went back, positive. It was like heaven. It was like what you would think heaven would be. That feeling of just utter euphoria and perfection and love and joy and like this bright, brilliant fucking light, and then back to a negative thought. And I don't know if they were giving me the negative thought, or if it was just like maybe because of something I had been going through that week, that it took place. Um, I'd been a little bit down, I guess, and something was happening that was causing me to be that way. But anyway, um, Swim kind of thinks that was a combination of both, and so I would go like back and forth, heaven and hell, heaven and hell, heaven and hell. Awful when it was a hell experience, amazing when it was heaven experience, and finally, um, I started to have like thoughts of a conversation that I'd had that day, and I guess this was like me coming back into my ego because I left that place and came back here. My eyes popped open, and the room that I was in was kind of like some combination of where I just came from and reality, like the Matrix reality that we live in. Some combination of the other side and this. It's like being in between both worlds. Um, and just kind of stayed in that for a while, and kind of had understanding given to me of what had just happened on the other side, and what I realized and what I was told, what I was shown by the entities. That's all I'm gonna call them because I don't know what they are. Um, but the entities said, without saying, they kind of, it's kind of like telepathic, like you instantly know what they're saying. And they said, heaven and hell are something that you experience and create on a momentary basis, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in your life, through your thoughts. Negative thinking and negative thoughts create hell on earth for you. And the instant that your thoughts shift in a negative way and you go with it, you dwell in it, you live in that negative headspace, you are living in hell. And the minute that you shift your thoughts back into a positive headspace and you think positive thoughts, you think good thoughts, you're living in heaven on earth. And that's what heaven and hell is. That all of these stories of heaven and hell, they're all analogies for that, for the fact that your own thoughts create for you heaven and hell on earth. And that you're living in hell right now if you're living and dwelling in a negative headspace and allowing depression to take root in you. If you don't have a genetic predisposition or whatever to depression, but you constantly dwell in these negative thoughts and you let them rule your thought life, you let them rule your mind and your life, you are creating hell for yourself. And that's what hell is. You're living in hell right now. But if you are the person who chooses happy, who chooses love, who chooses joy, and you're always in a good headspace, then you're living in heaven right now. The other side, that doesn't exist. That's not there. Heaven and hell is not there. Because your ego is not there. Whatever's over there on the other side when you die, I don't know. But I kind of think that it has something to do with what you think it's going to be and what you've kind of created for yourself there through your thoughts. I think it's some kind of continuation of that. Maybe reincarnation plays a part, but I didn't really learn that from Swim's experience. What I did learn is that there's nothing to worry about. There's no reason to fear death because it's a new adventure. It's a new journey. But the most important thing that I realized, what was confirmed for me, rather, because I already knew kind of, I had learned this from the Toltec traditions. I had read about this from Don Miguel Ruiz and his son, I think. But the Ruizes, they wrote the books, the Four Agreements, the Fifth Agreement, the Mastery of Self, and they are Toltec sorcerers. And they teach that your words and your thoughts are spells, and they create for you heaven and hell. And you create a heaven and hell that you live in every day with your thoughts. And I was shown how powerful that is, how even like the shift, the moment that the shift in thinking takes place, you're living in this hellish space. It's this vibration kind of that you're creating with your thoughts, and it vibrates throughout your body, and it vibrates into your surroundings, and eventually creates a shitty life. It affects your life negatively when you're living in this negative headspace, and the opposite takes place when you're living in a positive headspace. And the shift can be instant, to go from everything going great to just one thing, and then your thoughts shift. And if you go with that, you stay in that negative headspace because of whatever circumstance or something somebody said to you, something that happened in your life, even something horrible happens, you can't let that direct your thoughts forever. You can't stay there. You've got to let it go. Find a way to let it go and get back to a positive headspace. Because your thoughts are so fucking powerful. They're so powerful that when you're on the astral plane, or wherever the fuck I was, it's like your thoughts instantly create something. Here it takes a while for your thoughts to create, but there, like whatever you think is there, or whatever they wanted to show me was there, whatever they said. Or when they say, like Joe Rogan talks about, they say like, look at this, look at this, look at this, and they show you things. It's like that, but they didn't say those words. It just kind of, you knew what they were saying and what was going on, but they didn't really like speak with words, and you don't either. There's no language. Everyone understands each other through thoughts. It's very, very difficult to explain, but I don't recommend using substances. I don't recommend that you do this because of the possibility of it going wrong. You're not going to die. It would take a very, very large dose of DMT to kill you. You'd have to do it intravenously, and you would have to pack a shitload of it in a syringe to kill yourself. Smoking it, you don't have the lungs to do it. So there's not the danger of like health, but there's the danger of psychological trauma. I don't recommend that you do it. But if you're going to, then be safe. Um, have a friend there to help you. Have someone to sit over you. Have someone hold space, or do it yourself. Or even better, I recommend going on an ayahuasca retreat and having a shaman guide you through the experience. That's what I recommend. Um, but obviously, for legal reasons, I can't recommend that anyone smoke DMT. Um, but for Swim, the experiences thus far, which he will probably repeat in the future, but it's going to be a while, the experiences were profound, and I can definitely see what all the fuss is about with people like Rogan and his guests that he has on. It's much more powerful than other psychedelics, and for that reason, always be safe, always be careful. But if you're going to do it, go ahead and break through, because thresholding can be terrifying. You want to get to the point where you don't have control over it. If you resist and you listen to your ego when it tells you you're dying, then you go into panic. And if you've ever had a bad acid trip or shroom trip, then you know that panicking is the worst thing that you could do. It just makes it worse and worse, and you go into this nightmarish hallucination. So be safe, be careful, and happy travels. Um, you guys that talk about astral travel and astral projection, um, I'm not so sure that some of you guys have actually had a true projection. Because if you had, it's fucking crazy. It's unreal, and it's terrifying to leave your body, to be faced with the idea that your ego convinces you of that you're dying, and then to let go and just go with the experience and leave your body, and then be projected into this place that you have no control of the experience initially. You have no idea what's about to happen, where you're going, who you're going to meet, if it's going to be good or bad. You don't know. All you can do is be in a good headspace that day. Maybe meditate beforehand. And hope for the best. Take 3 big hits and hope for the best. So, I'm not going to share any more of the experiences in the future that Swim has, because I think that I've said enough. But since I am an occultist and a psychonaut, someone who explores consciousness and spirituality, I thought that I would share Swim's experiences with you guys. Maybe you get something out of what he saw and what he learned. So, till next time, hail, farewell, and skull.